Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. It's January 8th, 2023, and we already have so much to talk about. We had a whole lineup planned out for tonight, and then this morning, oh boy, we got things to talk about because we got ourselves a minister who's saying things, and we got to talk about it because it's really quite frankly out of control. For anybody who's not been following the social media today on January 8th, 2023, the person that I'm talking about is none other than Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, NAC Milliken. I'm sorry, I'm being told that's not the correct picture. That's actually Paul Cattermole of S Club 7. This is the guy that I'm talking about. This is NAC Milliken, Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. Now, if you're looking at this picture of Mr. Milliken, or as we fondly refer to him here at the show, S Club, if you're looking at this picture, I think, gosh, that's a happy looking crypto bro who sure looks like he failed upward. You're probably not far from the truth because Mr. Milliken has had some pretty big problems throughout his career. He's one of the people who was accused of some pretty misogynistic behavior inside of the legislature when he kicked out a NDP MLA. He's had some impressively bad hot takes throughout the years, but today, as someone said on the Twitter machine, he really let his hair down. First thing that a lot of people woke up to today on this beautiful Sunday day was this little tweet from Mr. Milliken right here, where he is sharing an article from the Daily Mail with the quote, "Portland homeless woman boasts about how she is fed 3 meals a day by woke city and can stay in her tent all day and do drugs." I just want to say again, this guy is the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions for the province of Alberta. This is the guy who is leading up the charge on the Houseless and Addictions Task Force that Danielle Smith announced a few weeks back that has, as you may remember, if you listen to our most recent episode, gotten a fair amount of criticism because there's some problems with it. But here is Mr. Milliken sharing out this tweet from the Daily Mail. Now, there's a lot to unpack with just that tweet, and I wish it was the only thing that Mr. Milliken did today that we need to talk about. But we're going to do our very best to try to unpack it a little bit because that story, first of all, the Daily Mail is, how would you say, more of the tabloid style of journalism, a little bit more of the sensationalistic style of journalism. It's not evidence-based, as you'll see in just a second. It's not known for not throwing around sensationalistic terminology. It's not known for not having tremendous bias. So there's a lot of questions. Why is a minister of the crown getting any information from tabloid journalism like that when he's responsible for ultimately going to be doing some things, hopefully, to address these very issues here in Alberta? Why would he do that if he knew better? Well, one of the obvious possibilities is that he doesn't know better. And given Mr. Milliken's proclivity that we've seen in the past for talking about the joys of crypto and all of the cliches that you would expect with, that's right, we're going back to it, this picture right here, he just looks like a stunned squirrel to me. I don't know why. It's like a Disney character thing. I can't get away from it. Maybe he doesn't know better. Maybe he doesn't realize how that article came to be, what the sources of information were. Now, here at the breakdown, some of you might know we're a little bit skeptical. So when we saw the tweet from Mr. Milliken where he tweeted out, "Portland's homeland woman boasts about how she is fed 3 meals a day by woke city and can stay in her tent all day and do drugs," we thought, where did that come from? Where's the source information? Because the Daily Mail, it's a UK paper. Here we are talking about a Portland, Oregon woman in some incredibly sensationalistic terms. Gosh, wherever would they have gotten their source material from? Got it from this guy right here. This is Kevin Dal Green. Kevin wants you to know that he's the only person who's going to try to save the homeless people and the houseless people and the addicted people of Portland, Oregon. This is just an example of one of his tweets. We're going to show you a few more. This one did some early morning homeless outreach today. I went to the most concentrated area and spoke to several people. Not one has seen an outreach worker in over a year except me. Unacceptable. We could do better. It's time we held the system accountable and demand results. Now, on his face, that doesn't sound too terrible because he's saying, "Hey, you know what? I spent part of my day doing outreach with homeless folks. That's a cool thing. I'm trying to get people some supports. That's a cool thing." It's the accept me part that kind of started to raise some red flags for us here because historically speaking, anytime somebody has said, "And I'm the only one who can save you," that hasn't worked out particularly well now, has it? Kevin's got some pretty strong views. Another tweet from Mr. Dal Green. Attached is a tweet of a man injecting anything he could find in an attempt to get high. Harm reduction workers responded and left new needles and pipes to use. They say they are saving lives despite not offering any other type of help, such as treatment or recovery. Thoughts? Sure. All of the evidence, all of the science is that it's better for people if they're going to use safely than not. And a lot of what harm reduction is about making sure that people who are going to use are doing so in the safest possible way. Not only does it save the healthcare system a lot of money because it prevents infection and other illnesses, but it also saves emergency response a lot of money because if people are using safely in safe environments like supervised consumption sites, their risk of overdose drops to quite literally in the city of Calgary practically zero. Sorry, risk of death from overdose drops to practically zero. But he's got some other ideas. One of the things that we've talked about a lot on the show, we had a recent conversation with Ewan Thompson from Each and Every, the whole idea of housing first. This is something that we've also heard from Chaz Smith with Be the Change YYC. In fact, most advocates who argue, how do we address the questions of houselessness and homelessness, say it has to be a housing first solution. Well, Mr. Dal Green, the source of the article that Mr. Milliken tweeted out, the biggest flaw of the housing first model is the voluntary personalized services component. This means a person placed in free permanent housing gets to voluntarily decide if they want to stop using drugs, take mental health medication, or work on any other barriers. Heaven forbid that a person gets to make their own choices about how they live their life, how they access treatment, and what kind of treatment that they should be able to access. This is savior complex bullshit at its highest. And it gets even worse because Mr. Dahlgreen makes the argument that someone has to believe this is the cause. We must treat this as the crisis that it is. Fentanyl has removed a person's ability for critical thinking and rational thought. We must help them now. These people can't think for themselves, so we have to save them, and we'll make the decisions about how we're going to do that. This is the source of that article that Mr. Milliken, as a minister of the crown, responsible for responding to the opioid epidemic and the houselessness situation in the province of Alberta. This is the article that the minister chose to amplify and legitimize. It's irresponsible, it's reckless, and it's just wrong. And I wish that I could end our little introductory segment with Mr. Milliken on that right there. But like I said, he had a very busy Sunday. He also tweeted this little gem out. Oh, wait, look, it's the Daily Mail again. The expansion of Canada's euthanasia laws, already among the most permissive on the planet, has raised concerns. And the article goes on to denigrate two physicians who are working to make medical assistance in dying available to people. Now, this is a supercharged and super contentious topic. There's a lot of people who have a lot of strong feelings. I don't think anybody's arguing that there's a perfect response or a perfect system for MAID. I haven't seen that argument been presented yet. And the reason why I wanted to start this particular segment on the MAID thing with that is because that's a critically important thing to be clear if you're going to try to have a conversation about medical assistance in dying. It's complicated. There's a lot of nuance and there's no perfect answers. And yet here we have Mr. I'm going for the clicks on a Sunday Milliken deciding that he's going to amplify another highly biased, highly sensationalized, quite frankly, garbage article that repeats mistruths, misrepresents the reality of the situation. And at no point did we see any effort from Mr. Milliken to say, you know what, this might be more complicated than a clickbait article from the UK can appropriately represent. Now, Mr. Milliken did apparently his press secretary may have found his phone and did have the wherewithal to delete S Club's very, very gross tweet about the Portland homeless woman. But as of the airing of this show right now at 8:11 on January 8th, his inflammatory, gross tweet about medical assistance in dying remains up. Moving on from there, it's not just Mr. Milliken with the UCP that has decided to take a very, there was this weird little break that happened for people who've been following the Alberta politics realm for a little while, because when Mr. Kenney got elected, we saw the advent of the tissue managers, the Matt Wolfs, the Brian Batesons, the Blaze Beamers, who took an incredibly adversarial tone with, well, pretty much everybody. A lot of people might remember that Matt Wolf was accused of, among other things, publishing pictures of people's children's. He was doxing people. He would regularly go after private citizens as well as journalists and members of the media, making all kinds of accusations and putting up Orwellian quotes. Super classy guy. Press secretary, chief issues manager to the premier of Alberta at the time. And then Mr. Kenney stepped down. There was the leadership review, and they almost started to behave themselves for a little bit. Well, it didn't take very long for some of them who have been around for a little bit longer to start feeling their oats again, because this week we saw quite the performance from Steve Buick. Steve Buick is the press secretary to the Minister of Health, Jason Copping. It's always a good sign when people who work for the government start to denigrate journalists, especially journalists who have an excellent reputation, for presenting really good stories. Mr. Buick went after multiple journalists this week who were reporting on COVID. He just didn't like the way that they were reporting. He didn't feel like his version of things was being properly represented, and he called them out on it. He said that they had falsified. He was claiming that they had a long and patterned history of bias, and that the COVID situation, there's incidental COVID. We're back to that line where, okay, so maybe the COVID numbers they were going up for a bit there, but there's also incidental COVID. It's not like having COVID and being in the hospital for something else causes worse outcomes. Oh, wait, yes, that's exactly what it's like. Being sick with more than one thing means you're sicker. And especially when you're dealing with diseases like COVID, they can make other diseases much, much worse. We saw multiple anecdotal reports in the news and in social media this week where people were talking about the fact that they had somebody in their family or in their circle who went into the hospital for one thing, got COVID in the hospital, and died. So we can do incidental COVID all day long. But if people are getting sick and if people are dying from COVID, guess what? It's a factor. And for the press secretary to the Minister of Health to decide that he's going to be the one to determine what should be reported and what shouldn't be, there's probably a term for that. Moving on from there with other stories that we know the UCP maybe don't want to talk about so much. Fascinating story came out from CTV. The Alberta government won't release data on snowpack contamination from coal mines. So this is a bit of a two-part effort here. A little while back, there was data that was collected, they were looking at windblown dust from mines in British Columbia on an Alberta lake. pristine Alberta lakes. This is a lake that nobody's messed with. And they took a look at, so we've got all this coal dust blowing over. What's it doing to this lake? And what the answer is, a lot of really bad things, quite frankly. So what they found was that the number of carcinogens that were present were 30 times normal in some cases. They were well in excess of what's acceptable for the fish livestock. And there's a second part to the report where people are asking, hey, so what do we know now? You looked at a bunch of other areas. What's the plan? Because you guys keep talking about, hey, we want to do all this coal mining in the Rockies. If you've got some evidence that maybe says this would be a good thing or a bad thing, it would be great to know what that was. Why don't you share the rest of that report? That'd be delightful. Well, the UCP said, no, we're not going to release that report. We're not going to share that with you. So that's not super comforting. Couple more, and then we're going to be bringing in the irreplaceable Sarah Biggs to maybe make a little bit more sense of what I've been ranting about for the last 15, 20 minutes. We got to have a conversation about just transition, though, because this is the hotbed thing of the day. And one of the questions that keeps coming up is, what exactly does just transition mean? And it's a really important question because there's a lot of people who are presenting their own interpretations of what just transition may or may not mean. And there's a lot of confusion around that. So we wanted to try to straighten it out a little bit. So basically, what the idea behind the just transition legislation that the federal government is looking at implementing is, here's the reality, folks. The economic climate is changing. The energy climate is changing. The types of jobs that people used to get working in oil and gas are changing. That's just reality. 20 years ago, it was entirely possible for somebody to drop out of high school and get a job working in the oil patch, making a very healthy living. And at that time, great for them. But the reality is, as technology has progressed, as oil and gas companies are looking for cheaper and better ways to do the business of oil and gas, they're finding cheaper and better ways to do the oil and gas. Also, a lot of the infrastructure that was required to access those areas has been built. So when we're talking about just transition, there's a couple of things that we have to be really clear on. First of all, most of the infrastructure is already in place, that we need to access oil and gas across the oil sands. So that's the first thing that we need to be clear on. Second of all, technology has evolved incredibly. Some of you may have heard of the automated trucks that exist, where they have effectively robotic trucks that are doing all of the driving around the oil sands. They've got their little GPS maps and everything. I'm oversimplifying, obviously, by a lot, but they are looking at ways to remove the human component and instead have machines and technology and AI do those jobs. And it makes sense for the oil companies to do that because they're pursuing their bottom line. And it's a lot cheaper to not pay a robot than it is to pay a human being. So those are the first two really big factors that we have to talk about. But the other one that we have to be aware of is the expansion of oil and gas is something that is starting to change. The products that people are needing are different. There is a global movement to say, hey, you know what? We've only got this one planet. Maybe we should look at things that are a little bit less poisonousy to it. And that's not a bad thing either. But what it means is oil and gas companies are looking for cheaper ways of accessing oil and gas. And they're looking for cheaper ways to refine it. Well, the stuff that comes out of northern Alberta from the oil sands isn't the cheapest. And so it's not the stuff that's being pursued as aggressively. What does all of this add up to? Well, it means the check's in the mail, folks. There is going to be a drop in the number of oil and gas jobs that are available to people. And those jobs are going to have very different levels of requirement in regards to education and qualifications, because it's going to be a more high-tech environment. So with all of that being said, what do we do? And this is the whole conversation around just transition. Because the idea behind just transition is, hey, instead of just saying, sucks to be you, you got out technologied, your welding truck, it's obsolete. Might as well have a Motorola flip phone. It doesn't work in this climate anymore. Sucks to be you. Rather than do that, maybe we can come up with a plan to aid that transition. Maybe there are new economies and new energy sectors that we can pursue. Maybe we can help people retrain to work in those. So what the federal government is proposing, in effect, is saying, hey, you know what? To all of you energy workers, all of you oil and gas workers, all of you people who have put all of your effort into supporting oil and gas in the province of Alberta for the last however many years, we don't want to see you get left out in the cold when the robots come for your jobs. So let's look if we can retrain you and provide other jobs so you can continue to care for your families. That's what just transition is. But for reasons that seem to defy any sort of explanation, it's become the biggest political football in Alberta politics that we've seen in the last little while. Because we saw Sonia Savage this week go to war with the federal government, where she talked about, oh, you know what, transition, that's a bad word. It means ending. It means getting rid of scary voices, all of the bad things. That's not what it means at all. We saw Danielle Smith continue to double down in editorials published in newspapers, as well as on her radio show, which we're going to get to in just a sec, where she talked about how this was all the federal government's attempt to squash Alberta's oil and gas. And it's just not the case. The position that the UCP government is taking by claiming that this is the federal government's attempt to destroy Alberta because Alberta is the province, apparently, of perpetual victimhood. They just want to hurt us. It's not that they want to provide programs to ensure that the energy sector in Alberta can continue to grow and evolve. Danielle Smith and Sonia Savage are standing beside a horse-drawn carriage, watching the first Model T drive past them and going, but think of the horses. It's our provincial sport. And it's ridiculous because it's only going to end up hurting Albertans in the long run. Now, in a fascinating twist, before we bring Sarah in, I find myself in the incredibly unusual position of having to give Danielle Smith some props. I'm uncomfortable, but when somebody does the right thing, it's important to acknowledge them. And in order to really appreciate the amounts of growth that Danielle Smith demonstrated yesterday, we got to take a little bit of a walk down memory lane. And we don't have to go back far, just all the way back to October. So at the beginning of October, Danielle Smith, enough is enough. We let the experts make the decisions and they let us down. They've created chaos in society, division in society, and now they've created chaos in the healthcare system. Just a couple weeks later, she went on the Western Standard. She had this to say.
The experts let us down. So I'm not interested in taking any advice from them. We will have new leadership on the board. And I don't mean this to disparage any of the board members. When you put a board in place, you're really putting them in place as kind of a caretaker to maintain institutions. This is not an institution I want to maintain as is. So there will be a removal of that board in the course of time, and probably sooner rather than later, with a reinstatement after we've done our restructuring. So the restructuring is going to come.
Now, those are just a couple of quotes, a couple of examples. Danielle Smith has said many, 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 many times how much the mistake was made that we deferred to experts. We listened to the experts. We listened to the medical professionals. What were we thinking? We could have put up half hour worth of clips of her saying that. She just says it all the time. And yet, brace yourselves, folks. Yesterday, on Your Province, Your Premier, when asked about vaccinations, here's what Danielle Smith had to say.
Especially with these constantly modifying viruses, we're always trying to stay one step ahead of it. I defer to the medical professionals and doctors and patients. So talk to your doctor, find out if those are right for you. Make your own decision. Certainly, those who are most vulnerable are very old in the case of COVID, but also are very young in the case of influenza. Those are ones that the docs have been saying for sure that you should talk to the doctor and see if it's right for you. And look, I'm for medical choice. I think that's really important that people are supported in the choice that they make. Best choice, as we always have heard, is if you feel sick, stay home. Make sure that you keep distance. Cover your mouth when you cough. Wash your hands. Those are also ways that you can prevent getting sick. But I'm going to just sort of leave it to the doctors to give you advice as a patient about what you should do.
Listen to the doctors. Listen to the experts. It's going to be fascinating to see how long Danielle Smith's advice of listening to the experts holds. Have the conversation with your doctor about the vaccine. Absolutely do. I mean, if you're not vaccinated, have a conversation with your doctor. Have the conversation with a healthcare provider that you trust. One of the things that we're going to be talking about on the episode that we're dropping later on this week is the reality that, unfortunately, there's a distrust in a lot of healthcare professionals for a lot of different reasons. And that's one of the things that makes people vaccine hesitant. So if there is a healthcare worker that you trust and is competent, have that conversation with them for sure. Listen to Danielle Smith talk to your doctor about getting vaccinated. Because what we're seeing right now with the wastewater numbers, what we're seeing right now with the hospital numbers, we have in the last year, as one of the reporters who was denigrated by Steve Buick pointed out, there were more deaths from COVID last year than there were in the year of health measures and restrictions. COVID is still with us. It's killing boatloads of Albertans, over 2,000, and those numbers aren't final. So there's a good chance that those numbers could go up even farther. But listen to the Premier of Alberta. Talk to your doctor about getting vaccinated. All of that being said, we got Sarah Biggs joining us. Sarah, how are you doing tonight? Your audio's off. That's not great. Uh-oh. There we go.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? Are you going to talk to your doctor about getting vaccinated like Danielle Smith told you to, Sarah Biggs?
No, I don't even ask my doctor.
Okay.
I just go.
That's the better choice, in my humble opinion.
My doctor gave me my flu shot the other day.
That's a vaccine, counts.
So I had to wait because we got COVID a while ago, so I had to wait.
This is a pivot. This is a pivot from Smith.
She's gonna go back to normal this week with the new strain that is coming in, and they're not doing anything. They're staying silent. And get the irony. So I got my child's weekly update tonight, and Parents Council is canceled in person, but they're having all of the activities that kids.
Well, that's good.
She's gonna be flip-flopping back and forth. Like, as soon as her bae's gonna get a little angry, she's gonna be flip-flopping back a little bit. She's gonna be readjusting. Then we're gonna be all up in arms, and then she's gonna say something, and then we're gonna be calming down a little bit. And then it's a cycle, right?
I was just shocked to hear her say that on her radio show, because normally, as we talked about before,
say hi to Fluff.
Hey, Fluff.
He just shoved that. Sorry.
When Smith is scripted, she does well. When Smith is unscripted, she gets herself into trouble.
What did we
the radio
say?
show
We've
didn't
been saying
see
that for a long time.
Yeah, but the radio show wasn't scripted. She wasn't reading off a teleprompter. But clearly she's been getting some lessons.
I think there's been some prep that's been done. Because it sounded very Like she has to appease the masses right now because Steve been nowhere to be found, and it's all fiasco over fiasco over fiasco. So even like today we were texting back and forth. We'll talk about tonight. And,
well, we're gonna get into that in just a sec.
yeah, and I think that yeah, she's probably just gonna be flip-flopping till the election if she wins.
What's going on with S Club, Sarah? Why is this a thing? Like, we had Danielle Smith surprisingly responsible with her communications on her radio show yesterday.
I'm surprised.
And S Club
so
comes out with maximum.
I don't think. Okay, so I'm gonna sound like super like protective right now, but I got the chance. Well, call it what you want, to know Nicholas Milliken a little better. I don't think he wrote that.
Oh, you're being generous now. You don't think that he wrote that?
Maybe not. Let's float the trial balloon here.
Okay, let's do the thought experiment. So Nick Milliken's press secretary, whoever that is, I don't know off the top of my head. Nick Milliken's press secretary.
He was in the UK. Then it was at City of Edmonton and came back. What's his name?
Oh,
yes, that guy. That's why I'm saying I don't think Minister Milliken wrote it.
So, but okay, so that raises two questions right out of the gate. So the name's going to come to me in like a minute and a half.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for it.
He was Lagrange's for a while there.
Yeah, well, you got your answer right there, bud.
Yeah, but like, okay, so there's a two-part question. So first of all, we have the incredibly ignorant, misinformed, houseless woman tweet where he totally misrepresented, like, it's a garbage article.
Colin Aitchison.
There we go. Oh, Colin. I'd love to see if Colin falls on the sword for this one, because between the two articles both coming out of the UK, you draw an interesting parallel. I'll give you that one there. But the first one being the homeless woman, that is just, it's a garbage article. Like, when I started clicking through to see, okay, so where are the sources for this? Because this is some batshit crazy stuff.
But the UK Daily Mail is not recognized to be a very, very reliable source either.
Someone should tell the minister.
It's well, sometimes staffers have access to Twitter accounts, and there's things that happen. He was basically playing hockey with his kids today. I'm just saying, he's not that oblivious. It's kind of weird. Two articles from the Daily Mail made today in this feed. It's really, really odd. That's why I'm bringing on the defense that, you know what? Let's ask some questions.
So why did let's ask some questions. Why was the homeless woman one deleted and the euthanasia one, the medical assistance in dying one, that remains up?
No idea.
Because they're both trash.
They are trash. I don't think he's had enough lashback on the last one yet. Or maybe, the premier's office has not called the press secretary yet to tell them to take it down. Both were trash. Like,
we got some skepticism going on here. We got a comment here. Sarah Milliken has a history of denigrating the homeless and renters. He's always believed himself to be above regular Albertans. Sorry, Sarah, you're wrong on this one. That's a comment from Love.
I could be wrong. I'm floating a balloon here because his press secretary is Colin Aitchison.
Well, that's true. I mean,
I'm just bringing in possibilities here. I'm here
to provide such an embarrassing variable. That's such an there is that guy who does say the really crazy, incompetent things from time to time. He could be a factor. The fact that that's part of the math in this is absolutely insane.
It's delicious.
That's one word for it.
I don't know why. We'll have to see how much lashback. Like, it's Sunday night. Maybe they'll figure it out by tomorrow morning during business hours.
Well, here's what I'll say right now.
Just for anybody hot garbage, man.
For anybody who's listening to this live on Twitter Spaces or is watching on the YouTube, if you go to NAC Milliken, you can find his gross, misinformed, factually inaccurate, sensationalistic, inflammatory tweet about medical assistance in dying. And if you wanted to maybe share your thoughts on that, that probably wouldn't be a bad thing, because the reality is the minister does have a significant platform and he's propagating this bullshit with apparently no concern for the impact that it's going to have. So if you're listening on the Twitter Spaces, or if you're watching live, go play is all I'm saying.
So I have questions. I'm just trying to see. Oh, there's no geotagging on his earlier tweet. Because sometimes there's like Edmonton, Alberta, or
Yeah.
I was trying. Oh, the tweet. Oh no, the tweet's still there. 13,000 views, man. That one
It's a
hurt. So that
problem.
was 9 hours ago. That was at 11 o'clock this morning.
It's gross. That's all.
It's just gross.
Mr.
It could be
Buick.
another staffer. It could be anyone. Oh God, yes.
So here's my thing, Sarah Biggs, from a communication standpoint, denigrating the press. I mean, it's one thing to, and I would say quite happily, we're not journalists. We're very clear about
No. Oh God, no.
that. Satirists, pundits, politicos, people with perhaps too much spare time on their hands, although it doesn't feel like that lately. We're not journalists. If somebody wants to say, hey, you know what, Nate and Sarah, or the breakdown, they had some opinions. Those opinions seem kind of bullshitty. I don't care. That's fine. That's cool, because it's an opinion. It's my interpretation of stuff. But
my answer is sorry, your feelings got hurt. I'm sorry.
But when it's a journalist, especially a well-respected journalist, and we're talking about, he went after 3 this week, where he tried to say not only that he took umbrage with the content of their stories, but he went so far as to cast motive. He went so far as to say, you know what, the reason why these journalists are doing these things is because it's deliberate falsification. It's torquing. They want to see permanent state of emergency. That's what's the comms strategy there? What am I missing? Because it seems to me that that's just kind of a dick move.
It is. Mr. Buick's not known for his best steaks. Let's put it that way. And, whenever you disagree with Mr. Buick, he tends to lash out. But he's following a pattern that is very well known to a certain type of conservative, is lashing out to journalists, mainstream media, and trying to paint them as the bad people, or trying to keep the pandemic alive. Well, guess what? The WHO said the pandemic is still happening. It's not that, the premier and everybody else decided that pandemic was over, that it is over. We got the Kraken variant now. So that's comforting. But he needs to stop. Like, it's fucking bullshit, man. I cannot believe, like, seriously, every single time, like, he's the new Matt on the healthcare side.
Yep.
He's just been lashing out at anything that does not fit his narrative. And it's quite concerning. Like, I see Minister Copping as a, a progressive, somewhat reasonable man. And seeing that Mr. Buick has the green light to communicate in such damaging ways that are undermining the very also critical journalistic work, because if it was not be from the journalists in this province, a lot of shit could have gone way worse. They made pivot the government so many times, and they made the public aware of so many problems. We don't have enough hair to count them, and it's all part of the same soup.
Well, that's the thing, and that's where it's particularly problematic for me, because we're in a climate right now. I mean, the breakdown tweeted out, I think it was yesterday, we saw that there was yet another example of journalists who are receiving violent threats, rape, and death.
Oh yeah.
There's this climate that exists, especially for female journalists, and that's a
Oh,
distinction
it's
that I think
gross.
has to be made, where people feel emboldened to make assumptions about the motivations of journalists and take steps to do whatever. And there's a big difference between arguing with an opinion piece and threatening someone's life or threatening to rape them. And when you have high-ranking officials in the government saying, these journalists, man, they're out to get us all. They've got an agenda. They want permanent lockdowns. Like, it's just irresponsible. You have to remember to turn your
White
mirror camera on.
fragility. White fragility. It's very disturbing. Like, even what I'm getting is mild, and some days I'm like, so the other day, the Western Standard went after Rachel Gilmore for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
And I sent her a message and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, they're just lashing out on whomever they don't agree with, or whomever they don't want to play ball with, or whomever doesn't fit their narrative or their sponsors' narratives or their, paid advertisers. But sometimes I'm getting emails and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why? Why am I so deep into this every day? But I think that what keeps the women journalists going, and people like me going, and so many people out there, is that if no one is doing it, if we don't do it, no one will. And that's the problem. A lot of journalists are willing to sacrifice their integrity, their safety, their, physical integrity to make sure that the truth comes out. And it's not that, some third, you got like celebrity A type and you got the Z type. It's not that some Z type journalists decide that, it's not working for us. It's not working for our friends, so we're just going to be trashing you all day long and send our minions your way to make your life miserable. That it means that we should be stopping, because it means that we're doing something right. And those women are doing something right because they've been calling out the bullshit for so long. But it just expresses how hateful and how violent and how the culture of those groups are extremely, extremely, extremely toxic. It's hard to explain, but at the end of the day, we just need to keep going. And, God forbid if something's going to happen to one of them or me, or, I'll be fine. I'm not worried. Those people can be harmless. But it's not normal that you got to check to see if there's no weird cars in front of your house.
But don't you think, like,
make sure your back windows are tinted to protect your kids?
Here's where I find it frustrating, because it seems to me that if you're going to, and this is, I mean, you and I have had a couple conversations about this over the times.
Yeah.
If you're going to occupy a bit of a public platform, regardless of the size, you have to be mindful of what the impacts of that are. And I think that there is, there's certainly choices that some people have made and that other people wouldn't have made. And that's okay. But I think that there's a responsibility of anybody who has a microphone of any kind to be mindful of how that microphone is going to, what the possible or even likely ramifications of the use of that are. And Mr. Buick is the press secretary for the Minister of Health. Whether or not Mr. Milliken is the tool who wrote those tweets, or it's his press secretary who's the tool who wrote that tweet, or whoever was the tool, somebody's using a very, very powerful microphone. And we're really only left with two possibilities, as far as I'm concerned. The people who have the access to that microphone either don't realize what they're doing, or they do?
They do. They really do. But I'm going to give you a parallel. So we saw this week that, Pierre Poilievre kind of went on about what's going on with Dr. Peterson right now in Ontario. It's quite fascinating. And he was like, the importance of free speech. Here's the problem that I have. As soon as some individuals that have a public platform rise up and say, no, this is wrong, this is false, and this is dangerous, those guys lash out at us.
Oh, you don't say.
But, it goes both ways, guys. It needs to be something that's reciprocal. Reciprocal? Help me there.
Yeah, no.
Reciprocal. So, but, oh my God, free speech. Yeah, tell me about it, man. The amount of garbage we receive every single goddamn day. But they don't want to have their feelings hurt again. White fragility.
Sarah,
it's very important.
I'm going to carefully walk around this conversation and just say, watching certain members of a certain side of the political sphere make the argument that somebody should never, ever be reported to their professional college for something they said that had nothing to do with their professional duty.
Around that real good, Nate. Dance around that.
I'm just saying it's been a challenging week for some people to not say more than what they have. Probably, I imagine.
I can't even imagine being in that person's shoes right now. It must be like my tongue would be like bleeding because I would keep biting on it.
That was cathartic. So much.
On to the next.
On to
be
the
a
next.
Rainbow. Be a rainbow, Nate.
Be best. Be best.
Be best. Be best.
Let's talk about just transition, because I spent a lot of time on that, and you've got some experience. You've got some personal ties to the oil and gas industry. There's two questions that I want to have here. I mean, I'm watching this from the outside. I'm just a hack, so I don't know very much of anything. But it seems like to me that Danielle Smith and the UCP have said, we have this election coming up, and we have to have everybody angry at Ottawa at all costs, at all times. So even if Ottawa is saying, hey, we'd like to make sure that a big chunk of your population doesn't end up unemployed, we need to lie about what that actually is. Mm-hmm. And we need to make people angry. Am I reading this wrong? Am I missing something?
No. Okay. So, during the summer, during the last leadership campaign, I worked with a group called Conservative for Clean Growth. And I do their French segments because the organization is strong. So it's like Lisa Ray, a lot of people, like more the progressive people, was started by Ken Bosenkool. Hi, Ken. And, we strongly believe that a conservative movement that does not have a good environmental platform will not necessarily be elected at the federal level. Now we can translate this to, the last thing we want in Alberta is miss the boat on the transition economy, because Alberta will become a Detroit, a no man's land within years. People will be leaving. People will be losing their houses. It is a duty from the government. So either we like it or not, the transition will be happening, because the companies are already doing it. Like if we look, for example, Tidewater Midstream, they're a midstream company. They have Tidewater Renewables now. Oil and gas companies during COVID and during the recession that we went from 2015 from now on, then after, they managed to run their operations extremely lean. So it doesn't mean that there's no drilling anymore or anything like that. There's drilling happening right now in the province. But companies have found ways to function with 75% less staff, which is fascinating to watch, especially in the drilling environment. on the rig, you're not going to have 25, 30 guys now. You might have 3 or 4. The transition will be happening. Either the premier will like it or not. Here's the caveat. Do we really want to miss the boat on the transition? Do we really want to miss the boat on the green energy and just be like, because that's going to be one expensive middle finger to the feds that will be hurting Albertans, will be hurting our school, it will be hurting our tax base, it will be hurting our seniors, and then we're not going to have any surpluses anymore. So we need to keep everything in perspective and advocate for what is. And I feel like we tend to forget that right now in the province, and we're having a little bit of a communication issue, perhaps a strategy or even a vision, is that we can change the name of it, but the market will be leading the way, and the government will be missing the boat. The government will be missing the boat on royalties. The government will be missing the boat on investments. The government's going to be missing the boat on so many things. So us, as the electorate, as Albertans, as we're an oil and gas family here. We need to make the decision of what do we want to do, and how do we want to do it. Do we want to do it the proper way and the prosperous way, the Alberta way? Work hard and get it done? Or do we just want to play chicken just for playing chicken and a middle finger to the federal government because our ego's too big and we just don't want to have to agree with them like an extra 5 minutes? As a collective, we really, 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 really need to make a big decision on that. And I don't think that's going to go well. A lot of oil and gas companies right now are investing and are looking to renewables. They are. There's no questions about it. They are changing the way they are doing operation. They are trying to find efficiencies because the less they spend on extracting or producing a barrel of oil, the more money they have in their pockets. And very often that involves green technologies, because very often there's automation, there's this, there's that, there's new processes are less harmful for the environment. And then, oh, look, we're getting grants from the federal government for developing new technology. So do we want Alberta to be a no man's land in 50 years and have our kids moving out in the province and move families away? Or do we want a prosperous Alberta? I want a prosperous Alberta. I want to stay in Alberta. But the thing is that we need to pull ourselves back. Well, I'm going to use an old saying, pull ourselves by bootstraps and, accept that this is what's going to happen.
Here's the question that I have for you, because this is one of the things that I kind of bump on a little bit. It seems like we've misidentified ourselves in some way. Yeah. And by that, what I mean is, like, you're absolutely right. I saw a column from political scientist Dr. Lisa Young today. She did her What Now political science newsletter, and she talked about the fact that even the Saudis are going big into solar. I mean, that the transition is happening. I don't want to get all Thanos-y, but it's inevitable. And it seems like, Alberta has allowed our identity to be shifted by politicians who want to talk about, I love Canadian oil and gas and all that marketing shtick. To me, it's a dangerous identity, because it's going to end. At some point, it's going to be less. It's going to be diminished. Maybe it won't end. I probably shouldn't have said that, but it's going to be diminished. And why not make the Alberta identity about leadership, resiliency, innovation? Why is it we have to? No, it has to be oil and gas or nothing.
It sounds like oh my God! It looks like you read Leela Here's platform.
I probably did, but I've had that view for a while.
Because that's what we went with: leadership, resiliency.
I've got my Canada Action sock puppet just like 5 feet to my left over here.
But no, so either we like it or not, either if the government likes it or not, Transition will happen. The only thing that will be different is that if we choose to be part of it, or if we don't choose to be part of the solution, we will be becoming the problem. Because at some point, we're like, oh, clean oil, come buy our oil. Canadian oil is clean, dictator free, and all that. But now, next, it's going to be like, well, they still do it the old way. It's like when, doctor's office resisted from moving from like fax machines to emails. Let's take it that way. It's innovation is good.
Think of the horses with your horseless carriages ruining the future. Soon you'll be letting, I don't know, women vote and stuff too.
Fuck. I'm gonna be able to have my own bank account. Can you
think
imagine?
Of where this goes? Think of where this goes.
Funny story about that. To see how the evolution's not great. I still need to change my from my maiden name to my married name on my AHS card.
Okay.
But I need my husband's signature for that. Yeah. My husband needs to sign a piece of paper. So guess what? My maiden name's still on my health card.
This is why we have to hold on to oil and gas, I guess, because otherwise
you
might be able to change your name by yourself.
Let's lead with example. Let's be leaders, because that's who we are. And we need to embrace who we are and who we want to be. Do we want to be leaders, or do we want to be sore losers because they don't like the way we're doing it anymore? No, let's move on. Let's grow up. Let's innovate. Albertans are innovators. Albertans, yes, sometimes the federal government, there's some stuff we could complain about all day. But the transition, maybe because there's the word just in it, so it sounds too much like Justin. But that plan was made in 2015. Sorry, I had to.
I've never made that connection before. It's the just in transit. Do you realize what you've just done? We're going to see Colin Aitchison and we're going to see NAC Milliken tweeting out the just in transition.
Oh, if they do that,
what have you
I'm saying it on the record here. I'm going to be sending a bill. Okay? I'm going to be sending a bill because that is TM. That is my intellectual right
property.
Yeah, I'm gonna be billing them.
But see, like, here's the thing, and this is like TMX.
It's fucking frustrating.
TMX. You can't say that the feds are not supporting. They're building the only pipe, like the biggest pipeline. That's like, it's just like, you can't. No.
Don't try to rationalize it. There's no rationale behind it. Okay. There's no rationale. They're still butthurt about energies, but like I said before, open an office in Ottawa, open an office in Quebec. We have an Alberta storytelling problem. And once we don't get that fixed, we need to get this fixed first before we can even feel entitled to complain about the other provinces, because they're like, oh, they're bashing on us all the time. When was the last time you had, like, you made a natural effort to not try to bash any government, try to go sit down with them and be like, hey, how can we work together? Because how hard is that? We need to do this. We need to build a relationship. I'm super strong. I always advocate for strong relationships. I don't care who the government is. Let's remember that the Harper government did shit for 10 years for Alberta. Let's remember that. Let's remember that for a minute. And, open an office in Quebec, open an office in Ottawa. Danielle Smith should be sitting in her Ottawa office until, everything is clean and done and everybody's happy and we come to agreements. Don't bring bashing at the Premier's conference. Don't try to be a China bowl and a China bowl in a China store.
Bowl in a China shop.
Thank you. China shop. We need to have people skills. Chicken milk. We need to have people skills and we need to build those relationships, because we could be, bringing LNG and using Quebec. But, why do we want to do building relationships with Quebecers? Why would we want to do that?
Was that your Albertan voice there?
I don't know what it was.
That was pretty good. As my prototypical Albertan voice is a little bit more well, but that was, I like the growl that you had going on there. That
I've been trying to lose my.
That was like Western alienation.
I've been trying to lose my accent for 17 years, dude. It's not going away.
Don't keep it.
Yeah, but then people get racist.
Is it? I'm not having that. No.
Yeah. No,
I'm not.
No. I'm gonna say, since I changed my last name, too, business is much better. I can tell you that.
Well,
it's fascinating.
It's because you're a Bigs player.
Go Bigs or go home.
Bigs deal.
I'm
punchy tonight.
watching.
I don't know what's going on here.
It's okay. It's Sunday.
Boy.
It's my
Anything
glasses.
else you want to say about the just transition? The just in transition, which, by the way,
TM
is time stamped now. The tweet just went out. It's yours. Credited appropriately. You're welcome.
Thank you. Oh, that's why my notifications are going out.
Yeah, that's why.
No, I'm done with the transition, but we need to wake up and soon, because we're going to be missing the boat and we're going to be losing all those beautiful $1 billion the government's just spending right now on stupid stuff.
There we go. What are you watching for this week? We're back-ish. I mean, Smith's doing the radio circuit again, so the machine's firing up. We had our little break, I guess.
Well, the carbon tax checks for the new year are coming out next Friday, so I'm going to be watching for my check in the mail, because apparently the government not like giving us money back from carbon tax. So,
I had one more thing I wanted to bug you about, because tomorrow's a big day. Big press conference tomorrow. Going to be fun. Going to be spicy. Tomorrow is the 9th. We get the announcement of the affordability checks. Danielle Smith talked about it a little bit on her radio show.
Here's my hope. I hope that she's going to spare the province some money and headaches, and ask CRA, send a letter.
Nope.
To CRA, like BC did. Oh my God, we're going to be spending millions of dollars on this stupid system.
Do you want to know how it works? She explained it on the radio show. Here's how it's going to work.
Please.
So there's going to be an online portal built by Alberta, where you will go in and you will sign up and you will have an attestation that you fit within the parameters based on last year's taxes. There's nothing other than just, I promise, I'd like the money, please.
So I was right last week when I said, we're just going to be clicking a box of, I promise I don't make over 180 and I'm not a robot. Fuck. How is this being where's the accountability?
This is what she said on her program yesterday.
Conservatives are supposed to be the party of law and order and fiscal responsibility. Where's the accountability? Where's the fiscal responsibility? Where's anything that makes sense? Oh my God, I'm gonna have an aneurysm. This is bad. This is really, really, really bad.
She was very, very clear. They might. She was like, expect it to crash. It's going to crash. Just expect it to crash, because people are going to want the money, because we're giving out free money with an attestation. It's not like we saw with the COVID supports that there were hundreds of millions of dollars of small businesses that were like, oh, we'll take some free stuff too. But she said very clearly that it's going to be, they might do like a geographic rollout where you can go to certain parts, and maybe Calgary goes first, then maybe Edmonton.
No, rural's going to go first. You know that.
Oh yeah, for sure. But maybe that's what they'll have to do. She's going to talk to Ron Sigerson about that. See maybe if there's some red tape that can be cut or something.
Bullshit. It's bullshit.
And it's
full of red tape. It's so bad. What's going to happen? Are they going to audit anyone? No, of course they won't. They don't even. That's the thing. Oh my God. I can't even.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to break you.
You broke me. And as the AISH recipient received the money yet?
They will get the affordability payments automatically. They don't have to go through the portal.
When?
We don't. They'll be announcing that tomorrow morning.
They should have done it last week.
they got the bumps. I know they did that, but my understanding, and I could be wrong on this if anybody's listening and you have a better or more accurate version of things.
Yeah,
I believe that the
please educate
affordability
me.
payments aren't happening yet.
So usually I don't look at the price of groceries when I purchase because I'm lucky. We need it. I'm very privileged that way. But today we went to do the groceries and I was like, hold up. I was like, this is expensive. I was like, this is pricey, man. I was like, oof. I looked at my husband. I was like, well, I guess we're not going to be buying beef anytime soon. Oh, I wanted to talk about the beef thing. So, get people together, go see your local farmer, and ask how much half a cow cost. Because I can tell you. So, I've ordered half a cow for our family, and it's going to cost us $2,000, but it's half a Holstein, right? It's huge.
Is it like the front half or the back half?
It's the middle, like that's the cow. Then you cut it that way.
Oh, so it's
That's
like a 50-50 split straight down the middle.
Yeah, straight down the middle, down the spine, 50-50 split. It's going to cost me about $2,000. It's going to come back at around maybe $4.50 a pound wrapped and cut. Go talk to your local farmers. Go see the Hutterite communities. Get some good chickens or as big as turkeys to make your dollar goes a long way. Local economy is the way to be today. Don't give your money to Galen Weston.
Hey, oops. Lynn in the comments here agrees with you 100%. She says buy half a cow saves a ton of money. So
it's a lot of fun, and I fully recognize, but get like 5 families together. It's for $100. And you're going to get like tons of good quality local meat. Plus you're helping the environment at the same time. I know you're a vegetarian, Nate, so I'm not going to bring you some cow. But it's the way to do it. Local.
Good for you.
Man.
I don't begrudge people who eat meat.
I always apologize to you on the phone when I'm ordering a burger.
I'm not one of those like evangelical vegetarians. It's a personal choices are personal choices, and you can do what you want. That's
because I always apologize to you when I'm ordering something with meat on the phone.
It's all good.
But at local economies, go see the Hutterite farmers. Go see the local markets. Work some deals with them. They're going to be happy to have the business and repeat customers. It helps local. Keep it local. That's what I'm saying, because those big processing meat plants, they're not. There's the Red Deer Lake Butcher just outside of Calgary, but Granary Road. They have fantastic meat for very affordable prices.
Are you getting plugs for this?
No.
I want my percentage. That's all I'm saying.
No. My beef comes from Jeff No Name from Sturgeon County. Just saying, my friend Jeff. We buy his beef from him. But buy local. Help your local farmer. It's going to help them, and it's going to help you, and it's going to help local economy.
We've got a whole fascinating conversation going on in the comments on YouTube about this.
I'm not even looking at the comments.
No, you're not allowed to. And in fact, earlier on, there was a comment that was like, Sarah, don't read the comments. So I'm not alone on this. You lose your focus and you get angry. It's not healthy, is all I'm saying.
I'm angry today because there's a whole lot of stupid shit happening.
This is true. Are you expecting any surprise? See, here's what I'm curious about. I think that tomorrow the press conference is going to be such that there's going to be so many questions. Like, I think that we're going to probably see a whole lot of journalists saying, wait, so they just have to say, no, I promise. And that's cool. And I assume that Danielle Smith will probably say, look off camera and say, is this relevant, before she assaults a lectern.
I'm placing a few phone calls tomorrow.
But are there any other, like, there's been a lot that's happened over the last little while. Do you think she's going to get some surprise questions at the presser? Will they allow them?
Oh, you know what? I want to hear more about the paracetamol debacle. Do you think with their check, they're going to be mailing a bottle too?
Well, here's what I still would like to know. And it really does. I know we talked about this last week. Mm-hmm. But the two big stories that I still want some closure on is the Tylenol, paracetamol, acetaminophen. Look at us with our fancy $5 words.
Oh, we're trained professionals.
Well, that's true. Which in no way gives me any additional credibility when it comes to things political, just to be clear.
Just saying, we're just calling it different name.
Exactly. But with that, they have the approval for the hospitals. They've said that they're going to be getting it shipped to the hospitals, even though they weren't bought to be used in the hospitals. So we've moved the goalposts all over the place there. But the other one that I still like, that there's questions there. I'd love to see that added to the press conference, but I would love to see a reporter stand up at that press conference tomorrow and say, hey, so did you get a tax receipt for bailing out Mr. Carpe?
And I want to know if they paid up front too. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. I'm going to try to call a few people.
I just want to know the answer to the tax receipt question. I don't know why they don't make it go away, because it's so easy to make it go away. Just answer the question.
Because they won't make it go away, because they don't want to make it go away, because they think they're fine.
There we go. We got some stuff coming up over the next little while. So Sarah, we'll be back on Wednesday, obviously.
Oh, I'll be in Edmonton on Wednesday, so I'll be live from my hotel room.
This is like a thing we do now, live from Sarah's hotel room.
Sarah's busy.
Good for you though. It's good weather for traveling this week, so that's nice.
But I don't like it because I'm away from Maddie, and Maddie changes every day these days, and
the kids, they do grow.
She's cute.
We're going to be back on Wednesday. We've got the conversation with Lydia Green of Back to the Vax. I'm so excited for that one. I was
wondering what the name was.
Yeah,
I meant to.
It's the website. If you want to get a little bit of an early heads up on it, the website is backtothevax.com. It is an incredible story of somebody who was all the way down the anti-vax rabbit hole and clawed their way out and is now working in public health and talking about some of the things that led her down that rabbit hole and things that can be done to not only prevent people potentially from going down that rabbit hole, healthcare workers. This one is definitely one you're going to want to listen to, but also things that people can do to help people get out of that rabbit hole. It's such a good conversation. She was so generous with her time. That's going to be going live for our Patreon folks on Tuesday, and it will be going live to the rest of the universe on Friday, because I've got a schedule I've worked out for this stuff now. We're going to be doing an in-depth conversation with Ziad Fazel, where we sort of had him on a couple of times over the last little while. We've been doing this piecemeal thing where we've been talking about the masks and about Atabey and all of that. We're going to be doing a full one-off episode, getting it all in one place with him, and looking forward to sharing that in probably 2 weeks. And then we're going to continue doing our twice a week updates. We've got lots going on. If you want, first of all, I want to say there were a couple people listening to the show last week who signed up to be Patreon supporters. I'm told it felt amazing, was one of the best things they've ever done. So if I'm such a bad salesperson, but in all seriousness, if
it will bring you salvation.
Exactly.
Whoa, I lost my. It's like the tithe. How do you call it when you give money to church?
That's tithing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's do public tithing and information.
That feels gross. But you can sign up to give us a little bit of money at our Patreon site at www.patreon.com/breakdownab, where, as I always say, for the price of, Sarah's even got a dance for my routine now, where for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can help continue to produce the kind of content that we try to produce for you here, have the kind of conversations that we do. It does help. And if you can't, that's totally cool too, because we know that we've got a lot of people in our audience who are looking forward to maybe getting those affordability checks, or a little bit annoyed that they're not getting those affordability checks because of the way that the program is structured. There you go.
And by the way, my child care is not 50% anymore. It's weird.
Okay. That's weird.
Just saying. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, sign up to be our Patreon supporter. That's all I'm saying. As the show comes to a crashing halt, Sarah Biggs, anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I need to finish planning my week in my week planner, because I'm back to work this week, because last week was kind of with the School shift. I'm seriously hoping my kids don't get COVID this week when they go back to school.
Fingers crossed.
All right. I don't know how much more I can take.
That's fair. I think a lot of people are feeling that way. So self-care, as always, super important. Make some time for yourselves. Make some time to do something happy.
Go to the gym. Do some exercise.
It's a good thing to do. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who is super active in the comments tonight, especially on the YouTubes. It's cool, you know, as Twitter's sort of been doing its weird little Twitter thing. We've seen a little bit of migration to the YouTubes, and I dig that.
I'm looking at the comments right now.
Yeah, that's fine. You read the comments. I'm going to close the show. But it's super cool that I love seeing the interaction and the conversation in the comment. I love seeing there's been a bunch of tweets that went up tonight as well. The one thing I will say as well, I know I said this last week, I'm going to say it again. If you have the time, if you're listening to the show, especially if you're listening to the podcast version, if you wouldn't mind leaving a positive review and maybe a star rating that you feel that the show is
there's some people that are really, really butthurt right now because I'm their biggest enemy.
The trolls. And for everybody who's watching on Facebook, Jesus Christ, don't read the comments on the other posts. They found us. It's been a week. Sarah, oh my God, Sarah,
I'm not a Facebook person.
Holy crap. The rules, the team has a very explicit set of rules in regards to things that you have to say or do to get blocked.
What were they saying though?
Oh man, it was like there's this network. I don't know where the posts are being shared to because people have their privacy settings and everything, but there's this network of like hardcore anti-vax QAnon conspiracy theorists. The breakdowns beginning comments from people from the States, from like friggin' Spain, from Ontario. And
where do they find the time? I don't have time to.
It's been nuts. Like I think we've blocked about 50 people in the last 5 days. And the block list is like maybe 55 people. And we've had that Facebook page for 4 years. And it's just in the last week where these people have.
Sorry.
Wow. It's been,
where do they find the time? It's like those losers that sent me emails after CBC. Like, seriously, guys, don't you have a job?
Well, and like, here's the thing. Like, here's what I don't get, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. The
Whistle Stop Cafe fans.
Sorry. The language. Like, why would you post that stuff beside your name? I just don't. It's graphic. Like, it's not okay. There's some people who need help is all I'm saying. But for all of the wonderful people in the comments listening to the show, Jesus Christ, just don't read the Facebook comments. We're trying to stay on top. No, there was one in like a day, there was 500 comments. It was ridiculous.
Sorry, Deborah. No, I was not. I was just talking about those goobers. Not about you, Deborah. I'm talking about the goobers. They're writing insults all day long.
I'm sure they have a very, very Sarah Biggs.
Oh, whatever.
All right. Wrapping it up. Thank you, everybody, for interacting. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you've been watching the live stream, thank you so much. I love the fact that the live stream is now working reliably. That just makes my heart so happy. And it's, again, because of the support from our Patreon sponsors that we're able to do that. We'll see you on Wednesday. And in the meantime, and in between time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep the conversation going.